Okay, so my all too usual unwillingness to play anything anymore is striking. It's been striking this whole time. But I started chunking out the income to the state, paid off dues. Each leader got their own money. I don't think those Thetis cards are actually troops in any sense of the word. They don't have any cost listed on them. I'll have to look that up. But since these come out from something else, I don't know. It says players pay for own troops cards. Let's see if there's something in the rules on this. See, this is different from, you know, the earlier games in the series. The idea of having your own troops outside of in Republic of Rome, where you might have troops loyal to you. So let's see what this says. Each troop card they have in play from the statesman or yeah, I don't see anything about that. Maybe it's in here. I mean, the only reason I'm saying they're troops is because there are troop counters, but those don't seem to be aligned with those cards. And Rick mentioned something, there's a law or something that brings troops into play with those counters. So I'm not thinking that they are, and they are not buried in here either. So I'm guessing that's not the case. Now we're allowed to trade cards and the possibility of contributions and bankruptcies. Contributions, you know, honestly, I don't think the amount of money the players have right now are enough to influence our ability to fight this war, so nobody's going to really be doing that unless they can gain something. Now, what does a gain mean? Well, a gain in influence means you can talk to people. You can persuade people a little better. That's an influence and oratory basis. So it's of some use, but unlike Republic of Rome, the ability to persuade people doesn't seem as important in this because there's not this constant flow of leaders here that you're trying to capture. So boosting that, not so valuable. Also in Republic of Rome, just getting your influence up to a certain number was sort of, you know, was an important goal. That's one of the ways you could win the game. It's something you probably didn't want to do. If you watch my video, you'll see why players try to avoid that, actually, getting their influence too high. But in this case, that dynamic is gone. It's one of the reasons I keep thinking that influence matters for victory points, because it is the goal in Republic of Rome, or a goal. So yeah, I think the only thing we're going to be looking at is whether people can trade cards. People have put up various trade offers, which are, hey, I've got a merchant-only income card, and he's got a particularly interesting one, the import card. And they're both willing to throw an extra card in, an unknown extra card, probably useless. In this case, this is a purely useless card because Pericles the Younger is already out of the game, I believe. Or Peristratos the Younger. I hope I got the right one. No, this is Pericles the Younger. Wow, that may be important. I'm not going to... Okay, so this one becomes less interesting. This one's up for offer. Neither of the merchants had something they wanted to give up, but they may be willing to pass something away in order to obtain these cards, which these other players can't even use. This one's particularly interesting, which is, you know, we're going to have to build a bunch of fleets to fight this war, at least 10 fleets, say. So, you know, it's worth like 20 bucks. How much of your current cash is that worth? Is it worth any people cards? They're probably not very interesting. Although this guy was willing to offer 8 bucks for it straight up. This guy had something more interesting. He has this stratagem card, which isn't terribly useful to him because he doesn't have a good military leader. He's merchants. He figures he's probably not going to get a good military leader. Let me make sure he doesn't have one in here. He does not have one in his hand. So he's going to offer a stratagem card, But that's not enough. This guy's like, you know, I still want the cash. So he's going to give that and $6 up in order to obtain this card. The player drew another one of these inactive wars. They're just piling up there. There was a Hand of Time event which killed off one of these characters down here, I think is, I don't know. I tracked the votes, got them back into alignment. Those aren't correct. Again, whenever I need to do that, I think I'm just going to have to calculate it. It's helpful, once I do calculate it, to have it recorded there for the ordering, rather than... but maintaining state on a bunch of different tracks, that's a hard thing to do. The votes, that changes enough, although I could just calculate those at the beginning of a thingamabob, or whatever the forum phase is. Assembly phase, whatever. Senate phase is what it is in the other one. He could not try to attract a follower because he wanted to play another ruler. And you can see the numbers came out. He's now the youngest of the people around as we spin through that. And we'll keep going. What I've always been iffy about in this game is your seating order matters, kind of like it does in an 18xx game. I always feel a little weird about that. The first player is chosen by state of the game, in this case, the office. Now, there's a lot of calculations going on as to ordering and what, you know, how many votes you have and whatever the ordering when you do the drafting, that maybe doing an ordering might not make a lot of sense anyway. But there is a certain small amount of effect, I know, in Republic of Rome from that feels a little fake. Now, there's no reason that has to be baked into the rules. You could make some sort of optional rule that, you know, you use the rules for who the first player is, but then something like this to determine who the second and foregoing players are, or even just randomize it beyond that first player. If you feel that that is an exceeding, you know, that there's too much of an advantage falling on someone by maybe going right after someone else or whatever. It's not like this is a game where there's no luck factor, so, you know, it doesn't really hurt you that much to throw some luck in there. In 18xx, I'm really reluctant to ever touch the seating order thing, because I feel like that's actually one of the major decision points as to what to do in a game. Hey, who's sitting on my left and how likely are they to move stuff? You know, that kind of thing. All right, anyway, just one of those things I want to bring up as to if there's some, you know, there's a lot of room for a little bit of fiddling in these games to just tweak things just a little bit to your own taste. Another Hand of Fate come up on him, killed off another character. There seems to be a fair number of these. I'm not sure, you know, maybe I'm getting a high proportion of them, but that starts to draw some concerns with, hey, are you shuffling through your characters at too fast a rate? Not for historical circumstances. I'm actually fairly certain that people dying at a higher rate is fine for that, but in terms of like the play continuity, knowing that, yeah, I'm going to have this faction more or less for a while. If people are dropping like flies, that's going to change the nature of the way the game feels. Now, will it cause a problem? I don't know. I could definitely see people who are used to Republic of Rome without, you know, my little death rolls in them or something similar, being very disturbed seeing people dropping anywhere near this fast. You know, they're falling fast. Now, that can happen in Republic of Rome. You could get a plague or something like that and a lot of chits come out at once. So it's not that big a deal. But if it does continue at this kind of pace, it is going to be a faster pace than you're used to in this style of game. Certainly faster than Founding Fathers seems to have in terms of what's falling right now. We got more wars, just this whole huge pile of inactive wars collecting up. And I don't believe that there's anything that forces inactive wars to go active directly. These are all kind of wars of choice. So, unless I missed something in the rules, which is possible, it's always possible. But one of the things is, this guy's collected up a lot of cash on his character. That makes him kind of maybe capable of doing a persuasion attempt. So we add his influence, which is 6 + 1 oratory, 7. as long as nobody's got a funky loyalty, right? And nobody does yet. We're looking at a lowest loyalty of, say, 6 plus 7 is 13. And here we're looking at 7. The money that I have, 14 bucks, that means, you know, I can get maybe an 8-point swing, but then he has a couple bucks on him. There might be money in the treasury that could be used for this. I'm not going to be able to take him over. This guy might be a little easier. He just showed up and doesn't have much on him. So that might be a better choice. Of course, I'd be transferring all my money over there, but that's okay. This is my faction leader. He can have all the money on him. So he's might have been better off having it in someone else's hands. He's a 6-7 to 15, which means I'm sitting at -8. So I could get like a 6 on that guy. Again, if I fail, I'm transferring a huge quantity of money to another faction. So I just don't feel like I have enough money to risk going for persuasions. And those big persuasion capabilities, they don't help at all when there's, you know, no capability to persuade the neutrals who don't have that big 7-point bonus, and who people are probably not going to throw money into. Now, in Republic of Rome, sometimes you will defend and prevent somebody from succeeding in a persuasion. That creates a really weird game situation in state where there's just, you know, a pile of money on some character, and then it becomes absolutely imperative to prevent anyone from ever getting that character. What he's going to do, though, is he's going to try to steal that stratagem. Is that the most valuable thing? It's really hard to tell, but the way this works is I take a card from them and give them one of mine. Okay, well, I want the stratagem. Looking at the other cards, I don't think I can take the aristocrat, because I don't think I can play someone who is not of my type. I may be mistaken on that, because that might be just as good a deal. All right, I'm going to have to try to figure this out somehow. Where does it? It would be in the Agora phase. Okay, it just says any statesman there. There's no limitation there. Unless there's a limitation on the backroom deals, I could actually take an extra character. Find any such limitation? I like this idea even better than the stratagem. The stratagem might be very valuable. It's hard to tell. And why does he fucking have it with his 3 military? That's horrible. So what are we going to give away? We're going to give away the 30 tyrants. It's not entirely necessarily what we want to give, but I think picking up someone is worth more. And of all things, this actually goes back at the bottom of the deck when it's played by its instructions, if I can get to the bottom of the deck with my cold, dead hands. Got something of an advantage here. Discard any Persian war cards on the board. Remove any attached leaders and events from play. If any of these wars has a fleet victory, remove it from play instead. We haven't won a fleet victory against any of these. So these get put into where they can show into the next deck, and I think this does too, unless... Jeez, I can't remember. Let me see. I think that's not clear. So I'm trying to read the way that news cards work. I'm not sure I've been doing this right. Subsequent players, after the first 3, roll a die before drawing a news card. If the result is within the range indicated, the player does draw the card. When the roll does not trigger a card, slide the card up to the earliest vacant news card position, which means I think the failure on this moved it here. There was a success on that, but then the failure on this would move this here. But I don't know what happens at the end of the whole round. That's not described. For ease, I think I'll put them up there because I think that they end up melding into these first 2 boxes. There's nothing that says they get discarded or anything like that, which is kind of important. And that means we're moving into the assembly phase, and I am cold and cannot keep playing. I have my heater on here, but, you know, it's not going to do it. It's just, there's too much room to heat up to do much. Just notice something. The first war that I had here says expires this turn. I'm not sure what that means, nor exactly how to find it. Let's see if that's listed somewhere under the war cards. It may well be. I don't see it there. So the real question, oh, there it is. This means that at the end of the turn, if the war is still in play, remove it. So I guess that means remove from game. My first thought, I think I had seen this, was it expires at the end, you know, after you attack it. But given that this is a revolt, I think it actually just goes away. So I have less wars here than I thought I did. And during this assembly phase, we have no imminent wars, so no one are promoted. Our office remains exactly where it is, I believe. I'm not absolutely sure, but I don't think anybody's above a 12. Gotta quickly scan and see, because people are starting to pick up cubes here, so they could actually eventually. He's got a 10. That's not too bad. Yeah, okay. But I think we do want to try to take one of these wars out, start building up our military, as it were, and start attacking things that we can. Now, there's one we can't do, which is this one. It has a required victory versus Persians at sea, which is a card which is kicking around somewhere, I think. Persian fleet defeated. So that would be something I have to I cannot attack until I've gotten that out of the way. And what else? Yeah, so we've got to re-elect who the strategoses are, and then I think we're going to try to prosecute a war, whether or not there are some deals that'll go into play. Now, this is what's complicated. In the normal, you know, in Republic of Rome, there's so many spoils to hand out all the time that usually a whole deal revolves around those spoils. In this game, there aren't many. There are the offices, and then there's the question of, you know, who's going to go resolve a war? Are we going to build the project? It's very unlikely for anyone, you know, it's not like you can assign that project to somebody's task, nor do you get concessions that show up that are available to be assigned or anything like that. So there's really not a lot to bargain with here. I guess you could make deals for laws people have, but I think they have to chime in with one of them Ecclesiastes cards to play one of their laws. So again, everything's in that first statesman's hands for the most part. And what he has in his hands, he might be able to get, okay, I will come up with this law. Let me see how this is worded and see if I'm understanding it correctly. Okay, we're in the assembly phase. I'm having trouble finding the things you can vote on. Here we go. Okay, maybe laws don't work the way I thought they did, because I don't see them listed here. Wow, maybe laws are just played, which is not what I thought. Uh-oh, gotta look at that. I think they are. Keep secret and play as permitted at any time during the assembly phase. Played laws remain in the status phase. Now, people didn't want to play the laws they had because while they gave them income, or while they gave them influence or something, they reduced the income of the state. And those seem like dangerous things to play at this point in the game. The one that didn't do that created negative popularity. However, they might be worthwhile because by destabilizing the state and destroying it, your popularity in that soon-to-be destroyed state may be the winning conditions for the game. Therefore, I think people will play their laws because this is not really a semi-co-op at all. It does not matter. You can still win the game based on the popularity in a failed state, which feels a little wrong to me. I think this is how laws work in Republic of Rome as well. It's always confused me because it always felt to me like, oh, a law is something that I should be voting on to pass. But that does not seem to be the case. I'm not sure. I do not see it as a proposal, however. And I always thought the players should have to vote a law, and I think they do in Founding Fathers. I can't remember, you know, very far back. And in Republic of Rome, I probably did not see laws played very much. I seem to recall that players didn't really want to do them, but here they seem, in general, they usually held them until they got an advantage by playing them. But here, my feeling is, I can take a look at some of these, that these are actually pretty decent. Not this one so much. Like this corn subsidy. It reduces revenue, and the player gets a bunch of victory points. Can be repealed by majority vote under oligarchy. Yeah, now here it says Athens did not enact this proposal. Well, there's no such thing as an unenacted proposal as far as I can see. If a player gets the card, they can cause it to happen, if I understand the rules correctly on this. Anyway, I haven't assigned my offices yet. The question is, who gets to drop their laws first? And this guy has 2. And there's no timing to this, but it matters because there's money in these laws. Like there's revenue decreases in them. However, he may have collected them all. At least all the important ones. There's one. Okay. Yeah, they're all going to get to be played. Now, can any of these be reversed? Nope. That one can't. This can be repealed under, these two can be repealed under oligarchy to get the money back. But yeah, these are all going to get played. I see no reason why not to, because they're going to weaken the government and improve these players' positions. And nobody's ahead enough that the improvement that they're getting is not a good idea. Depending on the ordering, this one might not be such a great idea because he's only getting 2 influence and a single double popularity, whereas this guy's getting 6 single popularity, so he's going to be way in the lead here. So the net effect of all that, and these go, I guess, in the status box, is now the government has an income of only 15. Nobody wanted to do this before because they thought, they were thinking along the lines of, well, we're not necessarily in the lead, but he's in the lead now. He definitely wants to drop that income down. So I don't think Athens can survive these laws if they get up into somebody's hand, especially if they coalesce into one person's hand. One thing to note about the components, these 2 cubes, one's a bigger one, it's worth like 5, I think, and the other one's worth 1. And you got to be kind of careful about that. They don't look all that different. I love the way these little cubes look, but they don't necessarily express the information as well as counters would. Although certainly a clutter of counters has always been a problem with Republic of Rome. And now comes the question of, well, gee, with only an income of 15, we can barely afford the army we've got. We could build more, but we're going to be paying 2 talents per unit. So we can really only have 8 units that are sustainable. So if we build a huge army, we obviously can't handle that. These things don't create income. I don't see a way to create income. Nobody's got enough votes to start pushing. Basically, you need enough projects, I think, available to be able to get the votes. You can't trade cards except at the beginning of the turn, so it's not like you can make an immediate deal with people at that point. You could give them cash and bribe them in order to allow you to push a project forward, or you could just buy votes directly and push a project forward that way. However, that's a lot of money. There are a lot of votes out there. I don't know. But right now, I mean, the lead is definitely over here with the guy who's rolled all those cards down. And then we've got 2 people who probably are looking at this point at, yeah, we probably can't win because Athens is doomed to fail. What can we do to get second place? You know, and then the remaining 3 players are in the position of, well, we're just fucked. We have nothing we can do. No value at all that I see here. So I think the decision to make this not semi-co-op breaks, in conjunction with these laws, kind of breaks the game. And not making it semi-co-op, I don't know if anything's going to raise revenues tremendously, but it doesn't look like, you know, these laws would be reasonably passed. Otherwise, you know, maybe the smaller one would have been, but if that's done, then somebody else is like, well, screw you, man. You know, if you're going to get away with the small one, I'm going to take the big one. So far, I haven't seen anything that's increasing revenue, and that's the real problem here. And the players don't appear to have the kind of cash to make big donations. Now, big donations increase influence, which, you know, in terms of a one-time payment isn't great in terms of what you get for the ability to persuade someone, and because there is a time limit on the leaders. And I'm all in favor of the time limits on the leaders, but because there's a time limit on the leaders, it becomes less attractive because you're not looking at something that you probably will have for the entire game, or that you might have for the entire game. It is guaranteed that everybody dies. Which again, I think that's a good thing, but it does have some play implications that have to be taken into account, which don't seem to work appropriately here. I'm tempted to just reverse this decision, and because I can see this game is just going to devolve and it's going to be destroyed. It is totally going to be broken by the semi-co-op rule, or by the lack of the semi-co-op rule. In fact, you know, I feel like the only way I can give this a fair shake is to apply the semi-co-op rule either right now and reverse those decisions, or else replay it, because I'm not going to get to examine the game as it stands. So I'm going to say these guys do not play their laws, because their laws will destroy Athens. And it is the only way. Maybe if Athens gets a real income, those laws are worth passing. But as of right now, I don't think that I can legitimately, I don't think I can safely pass them in terms of keeping Athens alive, which means we get our revenue at 105. Why is it 105? I don't know. Something must have sent it up. Okay. And now we determine whether or not we can fight one of these wars. Let's try to bite off something we can chew here, which is the smallest war, this invade Cestos. What's kind of nice about this is, hey, if this is not going well, we can throw a proposal to attack this, or to stop fighting it. Invade Paros would also be similar. That would be a one-time attack, and I look at the numbers and the disaster stalemate numbers on this. The disaster is harder to reach. The stalemate, though, is much more likely because I'm going to be rolling 3 dice. So an 11, a natural 11, is much more likely than a natural 7. So, what do I do? Well, I need a navy. In order to prosecute this war, I need 5 ships. So I'm going to make a proposal to build 5 ships. The question here is everybody on board for this? He's obviously on board. I'm on board because we're going to be fighting the battle. Themistocles is probably on board. So at this point, we're looking at, it looks like the majority of the votes are going to go for this. If I formally did it, I would start calling on people and they would drop their vote. They would put votes out there. If anybody has Thetes, this would be a time probably for the pro-war faction to be there. If I say I'm going to build 5 fleets and that fails, then I can make a proposal to build 6 fleets. So spending money is not likely to be very valuable here. I don't know why there's all these different spaces. But these shouldn't be veterans. So we're going to buy 5 fleets that I believe costs us $50. And he gets $10, which is a pretty good deal. Okay. Next thing, what about our armies? Well, we have 3 armies. I think this is reasonable. And now we can assign our commanders. Now, we could probably face 2 of these wars at once, but there's no real great reason for this. This one creates a revenue of plus 10 talents. Each of these creates, not this one, but both of these create a revenue. This creates the Delian League. That's interesting. So we're going to start increasing our revenue so that maybe some of these laws can get passed. There's no reason to pass them right now, though, if we're playing the semi-co-op, because they're going to weaken Athens, and you can always play these kind of right as, you know, maybe not when Athens is going to survive, but when it's obvious the game's going to end. So even if you were playing the non-semi-co-op, if you were playing a semi-co-op in the aspect of, yeah, it's bad if Athens falls, if that idea is ingrained in the players rather than I'm trying to beat the other players, then they can still hold off on them and play them for some kind of booby prize at the end of Athens failing. So it's not necessarily bad as long as you have some concept of the semi-co-op to have some kind of underlying tiebreaker to it all. But if the concept that Athens falls is not a bad thing and is not really ingrained in the rules the way it is in Republic of Rome by saying everyone loses, and that is the only condition in which people lose in Republic of Rome. Otherwise, one person wins, and then it's up to you to determine whether or not you want to make up a game state for people who didn't win the game based on, you know, your sort of feelings about multiplayer games as to whether or not that means everyone who did not win is a loser of equal status as that particular game state of everyone losing. You know? And that's, you know, up to your own interpretation there, whether or not you want to add that to the game. I think it does harm to the game if you say that, because then people who are doing poorly will seek to destroy Rome. Okay, so here, we're going to do that. Do we need to build an army? Well, let's think about what we're going to do. If we send all the commanders, hey, why not? Well, the reason why not is if we wanted to prosecute multiple wars, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. If I'm just adding 20 talents to my cash. So let's send all of the strategos. Now, I don't believe we can send him. Can act as strategos for perilous wars or when fighting 4 or more wars in a turn. We are not doing either of those things. So we'll send the 4 strategos. Do we have to send them all? Not necessarily. The rewards for a success are probably listed somewhere. Probably. I mean, I'm reading this and I'm getting prosecution rewards. Yeah, what about if it was victorious? What the fuck? Good Lord. Okay. Participated in a war and were not victorious. Well, what happens if the war succeeds? Not explained there. Maybe it's explained in the other book. Fucking annoying. So, this is explained, unfortunately, not with a picture equivalent where it's green that's important, but instead they have the number 10 there, which is specific to that thing. So what do we have here? We have green is 10, which is the influence, and that'll be split among the commanders, but each commander gets the popularity. So it does make a difference which people we send to the war. And I don't think we need to send everyone. We need Themistocles, though. He's important because he's got a 5 military. And that gets us, you know, to 7 plus 3 is 10, which is clearly enough to fight this. But there's votes. And votes are the question. So Themistocles, hey, do you have any Thetes? Do I have any Thetes? Neither of us has Thetes, so we're not going to be able to up the vote count. So we need to find at least one more player to go along, and I think he's got the most votes, so he's probably the best choice. So what we're going to do is we're going to send all the fleets, all the armies, and these 3 leaders. And then we call over here, hey, you guys vote. Now, unfortunately for them, they can't play Thetes to force the vote forward. So any Thetes they have to negate the war, this will pass the war. Which means, yeah. And since I'm sending my own leader along, nobody's going to go along with the idea of also building the Parthenon. If I wasn't sending my leader, maybe that could be part of my deal. But I've got one of the strategos, so, and I'm going to go along and not try to balance this out. This might be a better deal, but we want to test out a war. Okay, so we'll send these 3. The vote passes. Is there anything anybody else wants to do? If you waste an Ecclesiastes card on trying to build the Parthenon, for example, you're just not going to succeed, you know? You're going to need something to deal with other people to get enough votes to get that through. So that's not available. And so the only way we're going to start projects is if we start a whole slew of them at once, which doesn't seem likely. It sounds like it doesn't sound like a reasonable way forward, but I can't find anything else to really trade. Now, it might be that prosecuting a war, instead of bringing this guy along, we could have bribed someone else with the Parthenon, which would give us the successes for the war, them the popularity for the war, them the popularity for this, and that might work out pretty well in comparison. But he wants to go along for the war. Great. Okay. And there's only one influence to be divided by 3 people. What does that mean? They split. I don't know if there's a standard division rule in this game. I don't remember one. But maybe. I don't know where I'd find it. Like, you know, if this was OCS, I know it would be at the beginning of the rulebook. I do not see anything like that. I'm going to say, if you don't manage to get the full amount, you don't get anything, I guess. I don't know. That may be spelled out somewhere, but the term split, there's no reference into another rule, so I'm assuming it's just not anywhere because I don't remember seeing it. Okay. So I'll just, you didn't get a whole one, you don't get shit. Okay. So now we're going to suggest adjourning the meeting because nobody's thrown an Ecclesiastes down and there doesn't seem to be any real reason for one, which means we go to the fight. And we've already kind of, you know, calculated this, right? So we are at 5, 6, 7. These guys are only worth 1 each. Plus 3 is 10. So we're at plus 8 on the die roll, which is pretty good. Ow. We roll a 16, which isn't quite a 17, so we're okay. 16 plus 8 is 24. That had better be good. We win the battle. We would split the influence. We each get a popularity, and the revenue goes up by 10. And this is now a defeated war. We have created Persian hostility. As a status, if there are any inactive Persian wars, from then on they go into the imminent box, which means we have, I guess, 1 turn to plan for them. Nah, I think they become active right away. Because promoting imminent wars. So yeah, so that's a danger. Now, so this creates some problems for us. We do get the popularities though. And everybody who went gets one of these markers. I thought it was, yeah, I do these, you know, this is the standard, although the laser cut counters don't have as much warp to them as normal counters, there is still a little bit of a convex side for the top of that, so you can kind of do it by feel. Okay, so that was the assembly phase. The combat phase is done. The result was a victory, so there's no problem. And now we have to figure out VPs. Nobody has any yet. Plus influence points. Reset these, and then all the players get to draft out of the 7-card pile. I have to build more armies. If I wanted to get up to that value of 10, I needed at least 2 more hoplites. Even though I sent these extra leaders, they weren't actually necessary, but I needed them for the votes, right? So why do I have to build 2 more? Because I more than doubled the value of the armies in play. So we'll take 20 more bucks off, and that's going to increase our maintenance costs. I'm still busy counting up the votes here, the influence points here. A lot of great options of cards. You know, 3 people got people, or 3 of the players got people. The first choice taken, though, and this is interesting, nobody else knows he has this, is the 10 tribes. Why? Not for a great reason, except that he gets 2 influence and a double popularity marker. Popularity is the victory points. Hey, cash in some victory points while you can, right? Seems like a good idea. And that puts us to the end of this turn. At least we got to see a battle go, even though I fucked it up and didn't build enough troops initially. But we fixed that just to make sure we had the number we needed. All right, that's it for now. I move into the next turn, start to collect the income, and I notice, hey, nobody turned into a veteran. Now, that wouldn't bother me, except that I remember Republic of Rome. I'm expecting troops turned into a veteran somewhere here. I'm sure it's in here. I'm just having such a damn hard time figuring out. You know, normally I'm against cookbook type things that say do this, do this, do this. Well, here I need some of that. I'm having a really hard time finding what happens that causes troops to turn into veterans. And I don't know where I'll find it. It doesn't seem to be here. It should be in here, and I'm just not seeing it, so I'm gonna have to keep looking. I wasn't able to find it in the rulebook, but I do have it here. Victory over an entire war creates a veteran army at the end of a land battle. So one of these should be a veteran now. We'll make it the first. And we do have to pay for all of these. Okay. I like to play Republic of Rome is beginning to show here, which is people are starting to stockpile money in their faction treasury. And I think this is just wise play, which makes it almost impossible to persuade any of their own leaders without the equivalent of a seduction card. I don't know, I'm assuming there is an equivalent here, which means you can't throw additional cash onto a leader. There's almost no way to take somebody over from someone else's faction. Now, the one exception to that is if you can drain their money in something, you know, then you can end up putting them in a position where they don't have the cash. But otherwise, really, there's a weird situation in the game. Early on, you don't have the cash to overcome the 7-point loyalty bonus. Later in the game, you probably don't have the cash to overcome what they have in their pool. Now, this could end up to be some terrible bidding situation where you throw all your cash on one of your leaders and you try to persuade something and you're just hoping it all goes. Now, with the limited number of rounds of persuasion in this, which is explicit, and I don't know, I really ought to look up to see if that's the case in Republic of Rome as well, whether it is explicitly 2 rounds or if it's, as I've always played it, which is just you keep bidding as long as you like. But it's very clearly explicitly only 2 rounds here. You kind of have to make a guess, and the risk is even higher, maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm starting to go through the Agora phase. We've pulled one thing already. It took the Spartan and allies out. Now the Agravians, that's for the Spartan Wars. Okay, so I could not have used either of those chits, either side of that chit for the war last turn. Okay, so some bad news for us. As we finished the Agora phase, the Persian hostilities in place, so a Persian war that was drawn. Forgot to kill somebody. Crap. Kill number 23. Gotta find him. He's over here. That's gonna cause some problems. That is 3 oratory off orange, so he's no longer. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard for me to notice everything that's going on, but the First Persian War came up, but also Leonidas showed up. The Spartans were withdrawn from any possible war, and Leonidas has defected, which gives additional points to that Persian War. Now, this Persian War is not, let me take care of this. The popularity goes in for Orange. He gets 1 victory point. And that is going to move as well, except I don't know how to move it. I really kind of have to recalculate it each time. Yeah, I know. Zooming back and forth way too much. Let's put this up here for now. Wrong set. And he's in the dead pile. But yeah, this creates a more difficult situation than we were hoping for. We thought, hey, we'll be able to fight that war. Now, on the bright side, we got Simon Kaiman into play here, who has the advantage of being able to ignore Persian War, disaster, and standoff results, which means he'd make a good overall leader, plus he's high value. And these values, 16 and 9, this could easily happen. The other thing is this war has an optional naval component. Given our current situation, I don't think we can fight the naval war without the Spartans. So we're going to try to fight it as a land war. Now, the first thing that happens is that got made imminent immediately, which means in the assembly phase, it immediately becomes active. I'm not sure why there's an imminent box. It really is an active war as soon as it's drawn. As long as this is in place, I don't see why there's that separate box. Maybe there's some reasoning for that. But yeah, now we're at the point for electing officers. I believe this is still our leading statesman over here. Unlike Republic of Rome, there's no mechanism that requires the leading statesman to move the way the councils do. So really the only way, what you really kind of have to do is you have to look at the oratory and influence of every character in the game at all times and either have it in mind that it's going to move or not. Otherwise, you might miss that transition should take place. I'm not too worried about that. If I screw up, I screw up. But it is a consideration. Notice, though, one thing that was important. When that guy died, the popularity went up here. That's now a victory point in the bank. That can't be taken away from him. It could have been earlier by being stolen away. So we'll see what kind of government falls out. This is a perilous war, so we could actually send him along with the war. And he wouldn't be the commander in chief, so he'd just be adding an extra point because we have a better military commander in play. The interesting thing here is Kaiman is arguing, hey, I've got a stratagem. I could win that naval battle, because if this is only 20, that's within reach. We have a lot of cash on hand. And the next turn, if we're not faced with another war, we can maybe take both of these out, because one of them requires the victory of against the Persians at sea. Yes, we have to face this additional 4 points, but that's okay. So this reduces, oh no, it reduces it to 40. I don't think we can face 40. Yeah, so we really kind of need the Spartans. All right, in which case, I think we're going to just be looking at trying to win the land battle, which doesn't give us much, but that's okay. And it does give us a lot of popularity, which is nice, and some influence, which, you know, it's like the reason you're made a strategos is so that you can get a share of the popularity of any wars. You get that influence bonus. That's pretty damn minor in this game, unlike in Republic of Rome, where the influence actually has some serious effects. All right. By the way, there's someone else. Themistocles is also able to ignore those Persian War disaster standoffs. I didn't want to give it to him, so I'm using the convincing argument of to Kaiman of, look, you know, he's my second chance here, and if he wants to work with me, we'll work. But right now, and Kaiman's willing to accept, you can be the main leader. However, something just happened. 2 votes were called for. The vote from Red, who's in opposition, and for this goldish orange, who's also in opposition and decides to throw 15 votes of Thetis into place, which throws this way out of contention. So this set is not going to be able to be elected as an entire set. Now here's the hard part, is remembering that this set was selected. There's no way we're going to run through all possible sets. But remembering that this set was selected and can't be reselected is going to be kind of tricky. I don't think we're going to get to the vote, and that means that now this group has to be a part of any agreement, basically. Now, there's a danger to this. This opens up the possibility of the first Parthenon being created, because there's 15 votes that are going to be in favor of that. And it also opens up that any war, no matter how stupid, is going to have support of 15 additional votes, which is a huge swing. So now, what we were looking at before was something like 20 votes needed. Now we're looking at 36, 43, 49, 54, 27 votes needed, 15 of which are right here. So he only needs to get one partner to pass the Parthenon call, which means if there were 2 projects available, we could do them both. We probably can't do just one, but we'll see what other people do in order to try to get in on this 2 double popularity victory bonus that winning this war will give. As it stands, and this is how these kind of surprise, hey, I threw out a lot of votes, can happen, because the 2 people I selected already voted against it. Everyone, excepting him because he doesn't want this to happen, can vote against this proposal without it affecting anything. This proposal is likely going to fail. Now, if they do so, he has to either step down or give up one of his influence, which weakens his chance of holding power, and, you know, he'll get put into a different role. If he steps down, he doesn't lose anything at all. But I have to remember who the prior strategos were. Now, they should all have a popularity on them, so that would end up going to, let's see, he's a 9, he's an 8. I don't see another one who survived. So I think we fought the war last turn. Unfortunately, I should be leaving the strategos on the cards they were on, but I also need them, you know, to mark who I'm selecting. I'm gonna have to try to remember that. But yeah, basically, that would change him to the leading statesman, would give, not to the leading statesman, to the presiding statesman at this point. And then he would, I guess, get to continue offering options up. That doesn't, it's not going to cause any real advantage to anyone. There are some people who would like it. He would like it because he might become, you know, if there's another failure, he might get the role. But I can't see everyone really trying to create that mechanism. So we're going to leave the leading statesman over here, and just because something could get vetoed, but that's not going to change this. It's got to fail by votes. and not just fail by votes, but fail by everyone going against it. Now, by the way the rules are written, he has to vote against it too. That's never going to happen, right? You're never going to voluntarily demote yourself, except as part of some kind of deal that you want to make or whatever. So I'm looking at that as a mistake in the rules, that it should follow the standard rules that Republic of Rome has. Now, what that means is now we have to take into account this guy. And he's going to have to be pretty much part of any agreement unless the agreement's everyone against him. He's not doing all that well, so he will probably be included in the agreement. And with him taken out of the mix for possible strategos and not getting into this, he's going to play his citizen requirements law, which reduces the revenue a little bit, gets him 2 influence, and a popularity increase. That 2 influence is going to put him up there. He's at 12 now, which is equal to Lysistratus, which I don't know how that's going to get resolved. It doesn't happen right now. Lysistratus stays as the leading statesman for this round, but it does put him way up into the contention. He doesn't want to play his big hits, although they could give him some advantages. Like I said, the Parthenon's not going to get built. I can't get enough votes. If other people had played Thedes, I might have enough that I could just pass these things through. But as of right now, passing them through doesn't seem like a good idea, which means that it's really time to assemble the war. And what I'm going to suggest is that we bring everyone except for him. Of all the leaders. Now, other people may not be happy about this. Not so much that he's being excluded for his little mechanism, which they're kind of, hey, that's okay. But because the leading statesman's going, he's getting 2 strategos going, and in particular, Cimon is probably more willing or is happy enough with assembling a war value that includes him than one that doesn't. Or than one that includes these 2. This guy's already got some popularity built up. This guy's got a purple on him, and he's not going anywhere. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to vote that down. Now, it's not going to be trivial to vote down because there's 15 votes in favor. If somebody could have jumped in, and they could just cancel this vote and get their own shot at a vote, which may be more likely to work. Indeed, blue is willing to do that. He plays an Ecclesia card. Now this is going to make some sort of enmity between blue and pink, purple, whatever here, which may not be the wisest thing, but basically he gets a proposal that everybody's willing to accept, which is everyone except his 2 leaders is going to go. However, we do have to actually build forces first. So that should be the first call here, is what forces we're going to need for this. Without knowing what we're having, we were looking at 5, 6, 7, 8 plus what? We got to get up to, you know, about that 25. So 8, probably one higher than that. There aren't a lot of hoplites to build. We have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, about 5 more hoplites. That's $50. That doesn't give anybody any money. So now our strength is actually not very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We're actually at -5, which is not where we want to be. And 4 more for the leader. Shit. You know what? I don't want to build these hoplites. Let's get that money back. I don't think we can... Well, we have to fight the war. Yeah, okay. So we're going to throw everybody in. We're not going to use that Ecclesiastes card. He's going to even allow this guy to go because we're pretty tight right here. We don't have the additional troops. This could be a failure, in which case the 30 Tyrants is really the only solution to it. Before we go, though, some other people have some laws they want to drop down. I know that. We definitely wanted the 10 tribes law out, which puts him also at that 12-point basis. The question is, does he see this as, are we going to succeed or not? If he doesn't think we're going to succeed, no matter what, he might want to drop these two, because I'm not quite sure. I think these can only be played during the democracy. Yeah, they have D's on them. So this might be my last chance to get these points. Yep, I'm going to do them. 80 talents gone. Yeah. And he gets 6 influence and 6 single popularity. We're going to dispatch the war, and it doesn't look good. So we're looking at 29. And we had 10, 11, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we're at -9. Yeah, this isn't going to work. Bad things will happen. Ooh. 16 -9 gets a 7. That's a defeat. We lose an army and a fleet. We're going to lose an army at random. I actually need a 10-sided die for this because I got 10 different hoplites in play. And then there's going to be death chances off. Defeat would end the game if nobody plays a 30 Tyrants card. You play it just after a Spartan defeat or disaster, a Persian defeat, disaster, or stalemate, or failure to prosecute either. And that'll turn it to an oligarchy. This can only be played in a democracy. So if we lose another battle, we're out of the game. There's a timing issue because 2 people have the card. So let's see which one gets the chance to play first. He was more ready to drop at first. You could always do a dice off if you don't want to rely on such speed issues. So this will change it to an oligarchy. All office holders resign, and he gets to name an archon. Somebody can try to kill the archon. Now, there is a card that prevents the archon from being killed, but he does not have it. So who's he going to make his archon? I mean, obviously it's going to be his own guy. Well, he might as well make it his youngest guy, this Strategos. I have a feeling this guy's payments to the poor, his laws, have actually broken Athens. Because there's going to be another 25-point revenue drop here. We do have the possibility to reverse these laws, which is why he did them. He's getting a whole pile of popularity off them, but it's going to cause us more problems. Now, no one wants to kill the archon unless they're holding the other card for 30 Tyrants. And what does Democrats resist? Okay. If he kills the archon through an assassination attempt, he ends up getting the opportunity to play this. If anyone else kills the archon and they don't know that that card's out there and going to get played, what that could mean is that the game's just over because it's as if 30 Tyrants wasn't played at all. So, again, if you're not playing the co-op, the semi-co-op version, that becomes a viable route to victory. Now, whether or not that's good or bad is hard to tell here. Earlier effects of that, where you're trying to destroy Athens, maybe make more sense. But now if you're looking at, well, especially if you're a non-aristocrat, gosh, we're getting rid of the democracy and only aristocrats can rule. And wow, I'm not sure I want that anymore. Maybe I want to kill him. Maybe I want to end the game. That's the problem here, is that these concepts, because we've strayed from the rules on the one thing where we would have tried to destroy the Athenian government as a whole in order to win by getting this pile of popularity. Instead, what we've got, though, is a situation where, I don't know that logic really plays the same role anymore. Are these people, are the merchants, are the farmers, are they more associated with, well, we stay as Athens, it doesn't matter if we're subjugated to an archon of to the 30 tyrants or to Persian rule. Which one is worse? That's hard to judge, and that's where it feels like there's not as solid, a connection in thinking about how these victory conditions all work in relationship to the mechanisms. I had already made the decision that, you probably shouldn't be jumping in and trying to kill people. But now, well, maybe being the most important merchant is of some value under, Persian rule. And I just don't know how to judge that, whether or not the merchant would be more unhappy with a subjugated, a defeated state that's now subjugated under tyranny, or, well, not under tyranny, but under the oligarchy, or a state that is I don't know, maybe just an enslaved state of the Persians, which might not be such a terrible result. Being enslaved by Sparta probably would be, though. So it's kind of like, geez, I don't know. And I'm going to continue with what I had and not allow anybody to end Athens, but I feel like a lot more thinking has to be done about the relationship of those compared to what I've done and what the designer's done so far. There are issues in place too, which is, I'm not sure becoming the Archon is terribly valuable. You get 3 influence when you're elected, I guess. You're not being elected here. You're being selected. And I don't think it gives any particular powers. It can't repeat. So you almost want to use it against someone else, maybe? Hard to tell. This is very, very disturbing. But the 10 tribes will be going away, one way or another. Either the game's over or it's going away. So we will find that law and discard it, because we never got to see the 10 tribes voting mechanism, which is sad. It can't even come back, I don't think, right? It says discard them. Discard them. Okay. Which means to me, we may lose another war, but only if we can become a democracy can anything good happen of it. I think we're going to not waste this card, and we're going to let him become Archon because it doesn't seem like there's any advantage to it. He gets to set the next vote up, is really all. The slate of offices, which again is a big slate. So that means, what else? Gosh, I don't know. We reduced the state revenue by 25. It is now 0. Are there negative sides to these? There are not. I don't know what that would mean if it goes below zero, if the revenue goes below zero. Normally, you can't play like laws that'll send it below zero, but you might be able to do this. Delian League would go away. The laws go away. The oligarchy deck goes into the people. Remove all wars of the type whose defeat allowed the play of 30 tyrants, either Persian or Spartan. Okay. Number of effects. Wow, the battery thing didn't work right. To this, one of which is only aristocrats can vote. So these are now the vote totals. Red had stolen an aristocrat, so he has 2 votes. Basically, we've got any pair can create the votes. Followers don't count, even aristocratic followers. The Thedes, I guess they stay there, but they're not of any value. All kinds of stuff like that. Okay, but somebody has the Democratic Resistance card, and oligarchy is being added to the deck. I haven't shuffled it in. Your faction is part of the Democrats. The Archon's faction is part of the government. Every other player left from the Archon chooses those sides and fights for control of Athens. See government transitions. Now, is this going to end the game? If it succeeds by maybe reversing the Persian situation? I don't know. I don't think so. Which means support Democrats or oligarchs. The Archon is automatically with the government. The Democrats resist with the Democrats. Place rebel markers on the resisting statesman. I am not going to try to hunt through these. I don't like their double-sided nature. I'm going to use some other counter for the rebellion. Any exile comes back. Nobody's been exiled. If the player of the card indicates any statesman on the Democrat side to general its forces and assigns him the leading statesman office. Each player chooses... Okay. All right. We are going to have to go to another video to handle all of this.